All right, my name is Mark Bernard. I'm a monetary economist. In this video, I want to talk about the current idea of the leader of Washington, D.C., and Washington leader and his idea towards an attitude towards Russia. I remember in 87, I actually bought the book, Art of the Deal. I had it in my hand, and I was thinking, who the heck is this guy? 87. I scanned through it, read it, and in my mind, it was just gibberish. I think some of the points were think big, be flexible. And I'm like, my goodness, this is such watered down gobbledygook. And then I realized years later, he didn't even write the book. This guy, Tony Schwartz, wrote the book, who is a strong critic of Trump, by the way. And he says he is not to be trusted. He is reckless. Okay. Now that was the Tony Schwartz's own words, who wrote the book, Art of the Deal. So it wasn't a book by the leader. So everybody brands him as a masterful negotiator. If he was so masterful, how come he ran all these casinos and other businesses into the ground and he was 1.8 billion in debt? So my claim is, as a real estate agent for many years myself, in Florida, a lot of these guys from, let's say up north, I'm living in Florida, let's call them Yankees, Connecticut Yankee. They want to outsmart the locals. They want me to act as an agent who can outsmart the locals through some savvy negotiation and get half price on a beachfront property. The reality is that doesn't happen. Both buyers and sellers have a certain utility and preferences that they like, and they find maybe you can get, like, let's say 5-10% fluctuation, but you're not going to get this radical, mind-blowing deal through just being a savvy negotiator. What you do have is people that have leverage and they have capital that other people don't have, and they can buy like a destroyed building and then build it up, etc. But that's not negotiation. That's just simply, be how they want to. And that's a different idea. So this idea of negotiation, everybody likes the idea that somebody can get them outsmart the locals and get a beachfront property on a dime. But I haven't seen it. Nobody I know I know people 40 years in the business in a very competitive Florida market, and they haven't seen it. It's more of kind of like a buzzword. So when people refer to the leader in Washington as like masterful negotiator, there's not a lot of evidence to that based on his business dealings. And certainly his book, which, I thought was just drivel, it wasn't even written by him. And there's not a lot of evidence that he really knows what he's doing. So when we fast forward to Russian negotiations, people say, well, he could still be not, showing all his cards. He just wants to lure the Tsar of Russia into a room and then really start the real negotiations. I remain a skeptic. Forgive me for being a skeptic. I've said it all along. I remained a skeptic. And the reason is usually there's further evidence to that. And there is no evidence. I just, it could be a long shot. Maybe that's the plan. But I've seen all the evidence go in reverse. Like when he implicitly blocked the aid last year through the Speaker of the House, through the messaging coming from the people like Vance around him. It's just not going to happen. But I would say that there's reasonable evidence that he has a Russian connection. When I worked at Deutsche Bank, I was kind of aware of that. There were Deutsche Bank loans in which they were, fined for money laundering. They lent Trump over $2 billion. Okay, that's a piece of evidence. Minor, but the Mr. Universe pageant, he organized this with this oligarch, Galov. Okay, real estate sales, his Dmitry Rybolev or something like that. I think it means he was an oligarch. His very hefty profit of real estate of 98 million. And let's see, we've got Trump Towers, disproportional. Even his own son said we have disproportional amount of investments in Russia and by Russian oligarchs, something to that effect. Even the NRA, the FBI investigated Trump for a connection with Russia. Alleged money laundering. I can go through that. Investigations were explored through Russian oligarchs. Stealed dossier. That was probably one of the most damaging, if you haven't heard of that. And the 2016 campaign. This is just to scratch the surface that he might have this connection to Russia. So if I were, an objective critical thinker and say, based on his negotiation skills found in Art of the Deal, which he didn't write, or his connection to Russia through oligarch money, I would say, just call it like it is. He's probably leaning towards helping Moscow more than he is the West and free democracies and liberty around the world. Now, why is that important? It's very important because it's not the conventional or even the uranium type weapons I fear in Russia being developed. If they can just get a breathing space, they can continue their project at Sergio Poznan Posad 6 site. Okay? During the collapse in the 90s, of course, even Yeltsin said they were working on biologicals, not to mention this guy, Kirillov, I say these names right, Ali Beck. They clearly stated that they weren't working on biologicals. But currently evidence, and even SBU leveled this guy. Actually, I confused some of the names. The other name was Kasachek. It's good enough. It's kind of cold out right now. I'm kind of blowing through this video. There's strong evidence that Russia, in my opinion, is working with dual-use biological labs. That means it looks like it has a medical use, but it could probably be used for something else. So if we negotiate some sort of frozen conflict settlement, the world should not be overly concerned about the conventional chipping away, which they will do in Europe, for sure. Okay, they'll do that in Moldavia, Romania, Finland. They'll make their way through the Baltics to link up Kaliningrad. That's not the big threat. And not even the uranium, it's the biologicals. And that's something we have to be aware of. The good news is Zelensky has said that at least he's messaging it, that he's going to hold firm on a lot of his ideals. So if the rest of the world, we have to carve out the U.S. for this moment, can remain strong, then we have a chance at changing it for the better. And any of these dual-use sites, etc., expose them. Okay, that's enough for today. My name is Mark Biernat. I'm a monetary economist. Have a beautiful day. Thank you very much.